Next to me is Jodi Becker. Jodi is the Chief Strategy Officer and Senior Vice President of Services for EllisDon. Jodi is also responsible for the overseeing EllisDon's Energy and Digital Services Division, EDS, which is focused on creating smart and connected infrastructure for the emerging market. The EDS team, led by Jodi, is comprised of network architects and systems integrators, has become a leader in smart city technology in projects here in Canada as well as abroad. And next to Jodi is Jawaid Panjwani. Jawaid is back up. Jawaid is a senior associate in the Ottawa office and practices regulatory and corporate law with strong focus on communication technology, digital media, e-commerce, privacy, fintech. And Jawaid has represented clients in the regulatory matters before the CRTC, ISED, Department of Finance, and many others. And my name is Karl Schober. I'm a senior associate here in the the Toronto office. I practice in the privacy and data security group, as well as the advertising marketing group, advising clients on food law, alcohol law, ad tech, emerging technologies, privacy, connected cars, autonomous vehicles, and so on. And before I was here, I was also an officer with the Competition Bureau and the Office of Privacy Commissioner of Canada. It's my pleasure to moderate this next panel about driving change for smart cities. Many of you sitting here are no doubt involved in some sort of smart cities initiatives, or perhaps you are just interested and following this innovative area of law that's growing. Either way, you may be like me and basically dreaming of that magical day when I am coming home from work on my autonomous on-demand vehicle, and as I walk into my condo door, there is a drone that drops off a pizza on my balcony. Not because I ordered it, but because my favorite restaurant got a message from my fridge telling it it's empty once again. No, just me? Okay. We can certainly say that smart city initiatives have already today begun, as the public and private sectors are exploring innovative ways to make communications more livable and effective. But with this drive for change comes unique challenges. When faced with problems, we tend to address these issues in the traditional way. So if there's congestion on a highway, we add another lane. But with smart city initiatives, there's sort of a degree of complexity that requires us to take more novel and interesting areas to address this, and that's what we'd like to hear more about today. So let's get into it. Jodi, first question to you. Smart cities involve sort of the merging of physical world and the digital world. What motivated EllisDon, to a construction company, to go into this shift in this area of the digital world?
So good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. So it's interesting, I was listening to some of Sarah's comments and thinking about the analogies between obviously mining and construction. There are probably a lot of them. But when you get down to it, what does a general contractor do? It really is all about data. We don't, we manage the construction of things. We don't have a lot of people on our teams who are actually swinging hammers. We have very skilled subcontractors and laborers who do that. But our job is really to manage the entire process and the project, and that's all about the data. So we got involved with the digital realm a long time ago because we had to understand the data that we were generating from our own projects. And so we actually created our own project management software about 20 years ago. It was pretty rudimentary, wasn't web-based, it didn't really exist at the time. But it was very important for us to derive analytics out of our own projects, even at that time. Today, that initial platform has been transformed into a more advanced digital platform. It's web-based now. It has AI components to it. And so it's doing all of those things. But it's really an imperative on our business, and I would hazard to say any business today, to become involved in, that convergence between digital and physical. We also had a number of projects in the downtown core here that were built about 7 years ago, where the developers of those projects were saying to us, okay, I've heard about these intelligent building things. I want to have one of those because that sounds really cool, and I want to market that to all of the law firms and other companies that might like to move into my buildings. And can you deliver that for us? And so again, from a business perspective, it became an imperative for us to understand what did that mean? How could we deliver those kinds of solutions? And then shortly after we handed those buildings over to our clients, the question became, okay, thanks very much, but now I don't know what to do with this, and I don't know how to manage that converged network that you just gave me. So can you come back and help me with that? And so out of that, we grew a managed services division, which was part of the seed for our overall energy and digital services team. And today, because EllisDon isn't just a construction company anymore, and hopefully we could talk about that a little bit more, we also have a very large facilities management team, which is part of our overall services group. And that facilities management team, again, Sarah's comments, she was talking about how people's jobs are changing based on the digital world that we live in. Facilities management is being run by the systems in the buildings more so now than the people who sit and face those monitors in the basement TR rooms. So that's it. Again, from a business point of view, it was an absolute imperative.
Could you give us an example of a project that went really well and a project that didn't go quite so well? And then sort of also finish that with some advice that you would give other organizations that are traditionally brick and mortar but now shifting to the digital world.
It's a big challenge. I mean, as I said, construction's not exactly, it doesn't have the best reputation for being innovative, although I think that's changing now. So in terms of managing the change, I'll maybe start with that part first. It is and continues to be a challenge for our business. I mean, we have an amazing group of builders and construction managers in our company, but they are those people who say, I've been doing it this way for 1,000 years and I am not going to change. So change management is vitally important within an organization that's becoming digital. And that, from my point of view, starts on the inside. It has to come from the inside. And the way that we've looked at it is very much the way that we look at our strategy overall, and that it's a values-based and culture-based organization. And so when we try to drive change in any way, we have to drive it from those values first. So when I'm talking about values, I mean things like transparency and openness. So the same things that we talk to our clients about in terms of what we will deliver as a service, we have to deliver internally to our own stakeholders and employees. So when we start with that premise, that's how we want to drive change and make sure everybody in the company knows why we're doing things in addition to what we are doing. So in terms of what has gone well and maybe not so well, I'll tell you about the one that's gone well first. And that's, it's a project that's very near and dear to my heart. With the work that we've done all across Canada, part of my role is to take what we've done here and bring it to the world at large. And so, as many companies do, we have our divisions within the company, and sometimes they don't always talk to each other as well as they ought to. And in this case, we had a really good example of communication across the company where our team in Calgary had just delivered a fully intelligent tower in Calgary. It's an amazing building. And the client in that case was pretty excited about what we had delivered, even though in Calgary they were struggling to find tenants at that time. So they called up their friends in Dubai and said, you know what, we've had great success with EllisDon on this project, and you should think about it for the new tower that you're building in Dubai. And so that client had heard that, didn't really know much about it, but Dubai is a market, again, where the interest in having something new, something cutting edge is very important. So when we went to visit that client, based on a tip that we got from our Calgary team, we were able to talk to them not only about what we wanted to do in Dubai, but what our success had been in Calgary. And we combine that through our energy and digital services team with our project management team on the ground in Dubai. We've been there for about 15, 16 years now. And when those teams work together, we were able to go in and convince that client that we could deliver an intelligent building. We've now designed and installed and configured the converged network for that tower. And we will be procuring the equipment. We will be delivering a centralized management platform, and hopefully we'll be delivering the managed services at the end of the day. So that's the communication piece, again, around change management was very important to us. And so that's an example of where it went well. An example of where it hasn't gone well is really just the opposite of that, the flip side of the coin where the communication did not go as well. And again, it's another big project that we have going on. And the major tenant in that project has made very clear that their objective at the end of the day is to have their business in an intelligent building. It was clear. They said it to the developer, they said it to us as the builder, and they said it to all their consultants. And the consultants came back and said, "We got it. That's what we've designed for you." When we went to take a look at what had been designed, it just wasn't there. And so we've had to work very carefully with the tenant, the business that at the end of the day is going to use that building, with the design team who maybe took a couple of wrong steps, and with the subcontractors who have to deliver that building at the end of the day to bring that back to where it needs to be. And again, all about communication.
Thank you. Jawaid, what are some of the regulatory challenges that your clients have sort of encountered when it comes to building smart technologies and providing managed services?
So can everyone hear me? So with smart cities and IoT solutions, you have a lot of moving parts. So on one end, you have the equipment and device ecosystem. You have connectivity issues. You have infrastructure access issues, and then on the back end, you have the managed services and the applications. So all of these components raise their own regulatory issues, and as a regulatory lawyer, it's fun to deal with them. We've been getting questions around three main issues lately. One is telecom regulatory compliance for our connectivity clients. Two is infrastructure access questions, as well as finally, most important really is the privacy and data security regulatory compliance matters. On the telecom regulatory side, we represent a lot of end-to-end IoT solutions providers. So as part of their solutions, they're providing connectivity. So they're either providing connectivity like cellular backhaul with their own facilities, or they're reselling that connectivity. And so right now there's a bit of a gray area. There's some uncertainty with whether these companies have to comply with CRTC registration obligations. And the CRTC right now is looking at this issue. So we're paying very close attention to this matter, and we're advising our clients on that. The second issue is infrastructure access. So with the growth in IoT and smart cities, and with the movement to 5G technologies, there's going to be a lot of equipment in the public space that needs to be attached somewhere. So our clients that are providing the IoT solutions need to gain access to infrastructure. This can be municipal infrastructure, it can be utilities infrastructure, it can be telephone company infrastructure, and it can be private buildings as well. So there are regulatory regimes in place right now that can get you access to municipal infrastructure for certain entities, but there are still concerns that our clients are having with the speed of gaining access to this infrastructure, especially when we do get to 5G and when there will be a proliferation of devices that need to be attached somewhere, and very quickly and in a timely manner. Finally, there's going to be privacy concerns and privacy regulatory compliance matters. In smart cities, you're collecting a tremendous amount of data. Some of this is personal information, and some of this is sensitive personal information. So we're thinking surveillance technologies here. So some issues that we're grappling with right now is how do you obtain meaningful consent in a smart city space? Who owns the data that's being collected? How do you share the data that's being collected? And we're actually going back to basics a lot too in determining whether certain information is personal information. Because a lot of IoT solutions out there are collecting, pretty, I don't want to say bland information like temperature and humidity, or tracking assets. So that's not necessarily personal information, but when you're tracking assets that is a vehicle and that vehicle is driven by an individual, then that raises privacy concerns. So those are the main regulatory issues that we're grappling with right now.
One of the hallmarks of smart city collaboration, smart cities, is the collaboration and partnership between the public and the private sector. Jody, based on your experience as a service provider, such as EllisDon, how have you built trust with public institutions, city planners? Any lessons learned from that interesting experience, no doubt?
Yeah, it'll sound a little bit motherhood again, but it's really all about delivering what you say you're going to deliver at the end of the day, and making sure that you have the people on the team who actually know how to do that. It is not me. I'm still holding a pen up here, but there are the people on our team who absolutely have the expertise to deliver what we are offering. So I think it's important to develop the partnerships outside of your organization as well, that can help you deliver those solutions. So we have great relationships with companies like Cisco and HP, and we work together on projects to ensure that we're delivering the highest quality solutions, that they can rely on it. And as the operator of a number of those facilities, at the end of the day, we also want to make sure as the user of whatever technology is going into that space that we can rely on it. So we can take that experience that we have as operators of facilities and owners of facilities and share that information back with our external clients. And a lot of that learning has come from our involvement in the P3 market. And we've learned a lot about what that means to be developers of assets and owners of assets over a long-term period. And so again, we understand the involvement of all the stakeholders, working with the public sector in delivering viable long-term assets, operating those assets, understanding the planning regime that goes around them as well.
Jawaid, sort of same question. What sort of issues have your clients faced, and what are some practical solutions that clients have taken or could take when trying to collaborate with the public sector?
It's fairly straightforward, but engagement with your stakeholders is quite important. I mean, there's been research done that, even if you're implementing proper privacy regimes and data governance frameworks, perception matters. Perception of, privacy risks and data risks matter. And that disconnect there is about engagement, a lack of engagement. So when you're building IoT solutions, it's important to build it bottom up and get as much input as possible from stakeholders. So if for smart cities in the public realm, it'll be citizens, identifying what their concerns are and what they want the outcomes to be. In the private sphere, if you're building smart building solutions that may collect information from employees, get them on board, see what their concerns are, and I think that would, lead to more trust.
Trust. Exactly. You've already, both of you mentioned sort of the connectivity aspect, and 5G was mentioned already, which is absolutely another important in this element of smart cities and IoT infrastructure, as this ubiquitous, reliable, resilient network connectivity. So, Jody, on your end, what sort of new business opportunities do you see with new connectivity technologies, for example, 5G?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the possibilities are sort of endless right now, aren't they? It's interesting to us to see how the market, the real estate market, the development market has really transformed over the last number of years, probably even within the last year. And some of the things that we've talked about with clients 3-4 years ago that sounded a little futuristic to them, we're now deploying in those spaces. So I think a really interesting example of that is a client that we're working with right now that is developing assisted living facilities and seniors facilities. And so, a couple of years ago when we were talking to them about what does intelligent infrastructure mean in an assisted living facility, the answer was kind of, well, we don't really need any of that stuff. Our end users, right, aren't really interested. Well, that's changing dramatically, right? I mean, my own mother, who's 75 years old, is addicted to her Google Home. So the connectivity that is needed in those spaces, purely from a personal point of view, is the first step, right? So where we would not have seen a request for fiber to the suite in that kind of a facility 2-3 years ago, now the demand for that is there. In addition to that, because of the way those types of facilities are organized, right? They're focused on senior living in kind of high-end apartments and then moving into, increasing in care. So all of the specialty systems that go with typically within healthcare and within hospitals, like real-time location systems, facial recognition for access, for example, where you have memory care tenants who may not necessarily have a key on them at all times. Those types of things are really important. Patient wandering, which we would typically have in a hospital, is now available because we have fiber within that kind of a space.
Jawaid, have you seen any or experience with your clients of issues with respect to connectivity or connectivity infrastructure as well, as including the 5G network or other examples?
Yeah, so a lot of our telecom clients right now are worried about spectrum. To enable all these incredible new technologies based on 5G, you need the spectrum. So yesterday ISED actually released some spectrum in mid-band and high band, so everyone's excited about that. But what we also advise our clients is determine what your needs are when it comes to your connectivity mix. So whether it's Wi-Fi, Ethernet or cellular, determine what your needs are, because all IoT solutions don't need 5G, right? If you're tracking, if you're just collecting humidity or temperature information, 4G or 3G will be enough. So determine what your needs are before you obtain connectivity solutions.
I'm going to shift it to data, the concepts of wrap up. Got it. Quick question, Jody, 5 seconds. Around data control and data ownership, these are obviously concepts that are high in a lot of people's minds. How has EllisDon sort of approached these concepts?
So we've probably approached it very differently from some of our partners and competitors, in that we are absolutely passionate about owning our own data and being very, very careful about who we share that data with. There are a number of technology-based companies out there that are amalgamating data from companies like ours in order to provide analytics. The problem with that is that allows, that's our secret sauce, right? And so if we're not careful about what we do with our IP, with our secret sauce, so to speak, then we are losing our value. Going back to my original comment about us being a data company. We're happy to share our data. We're happy to share our data with our clients. We're happy to share it as part of our projects. But at the end of the day, to control our destiny, to compete with our new competitors, who are going to be different types of competitors, they're going to be tech companies, we need to control that data.
And I guess this sort of goes to the mindset of like you've suddenly discovered, or not suddenly, but for now, a while now, you are data stewards. And so has a conversation happened of like how do we communicate that data is now a revenue stream? And how do we sort of approach that? Has that been sort of a topic in mind, whether you are dealing with others?
Yeah, I mean, there's a project going on in Toronto that everybody knows about that is very focused around data. And probably everybody in here is working on it. I mean, it's a great example, right? Because like everyone else, we're working on that project, and what that client was looking for at the end of the day was data. And so we had to think very carefully about, the juxtaposition between our desire to work with that client and to provide the data that they need in order to do what they have to do, and at the same time, again, make sure that we were protecting what is most valuable to us.
I see we are about out of time, but we do have some time for questions. I'm being told one question. Maybe we'll see. Does anybody have a question for either or both, Jody or Jawaid?
Jody, you mentioned that we're now seeing things that 3 years ago we might not have imagined could come to bear. I guess everybody's familiar with smart buildings and energy efficient buildings. But if you're to look now what's being planned for 3 to 5 years hence, beyond what you talked about in terms of facial recognition, what other technologies, or how do you see IoT being used in buildings?
Yeah, it's moving so fast. It's really hard to predict these things, but I think I would go back to my comment about how facilities are operated. So we're working right now, pertinent to the conversation about AI, with a technology company that is autonomously optimizing energy within the built environment. What does that mean? It means, frankly, that you are going to change the type of people that you have operating your facilities. I say it's the change from technicians to technologists. So where you might have had an operator in this building who's looking at set points on a building automation system in order to determine the comfort within the space, how warm or how cold it should be, now that's being determined by analytics in the cloud. And in some cases, it's being crowdsourced, right? So we could have the possibility of sitting in this room and everybody could vote on what the temperature should be, and the software would determine the comfort in the room. So we're starting to see that. I think that will dramatically change how we operate buildings.
Thank you. Kirsten has...
I share a wall with Karl, so if you can get that temperature thing sorted out, I would be grateful.
Solve a lot of
and
problems.
And he runs hot.
Very neat male-female issue.
Thank you very much.